May 1941. The North Atlantic is cold, gray, and unforgiving. Through fog and storm, the German battleship Bismarck moves silently, a steel giant weighing more than 50,000 tons. Her mission: to hunt Allied convoys and strangle Britain's lifeline at sea. Her reputation: unstoppable. And soon, the Royal Navy will unleash every ship it has to find and destroy her, no matter the cost. This is the true story of the hunt for the Bismarck, one of the greatest naval chases in history. In 1939, as Europe plunged into war, Nazi Germany began building its most powerful warship yet, the Bismarck, named after the Iron Chancellor who unified the German Empire. She was enormous, 823 feet long, with 8 15-inch guns, thick armor, and radar-guided fire control. Capable of speeds over 30 knots, she was faster than most battleships and more heavily armed than any ship Britain possessed. When she joined the Kriegsmarine in August 1940, she was hailed as the pride of Hitler's navy, the symbol of German naval power reborn. But her true purpose wasn't prestige. It was terror. Germany planned to use Bismarck to hunt down the merchant convoys that kept Britain alive, the ships bringing food, fuel, and weapons across the Atlantic. In May 1941, Bismarck was ordered to sea on her first major operation, Operation Rheinübung. She would break into the North Atlantic, link up with U-boats, and destroy Allied shipping routes. Her escort, the heavy cruiser Prinz Eugen. Together they slipped quietly out of the Baltic and into the icy waters of Norway. British intelligence quickly learned that Bismarck had sailed. Admiral Sir John Tovey, commander of the Home Fleet, issued the order: the Bismarck must be destroyed at all costs. The hunt had begun. At dawn on May 24, 1941, British lookouts aboard the battlecruiser HMS Hood spotted smoke on the horizon. The Bismarck had been found. Hood, the pride of the Royal Navy, was accompanied by the new battleship HMS Prince of Wales. They closed the distance rapidly, heavy guns trained forward. At 5:52 a.m., the Hood opened fire. Her first salvos fell short. Bismarck responded. Her shells, each weighing nearly a ton, arced across 15 miles of ocean and struck home. One shell hit Hood's aft magazine. A second later, a blinding explosion tore the ship apart. Within minutes, Hood was gone, broken in two. Of her crew of 1,418, only 3 survived. It was one of the darkest moments in Royal Navy history. But the Bismarck, too, was damaged. A shell from Prince of Wales had punctured a fuel tank, leaving an oily trail behind her. That leak would become her undoing. After the battle, Bismarck turned south, heading for the French port of Brest to repair. British forces scattered across the Atlantic began closing in. Aircraft from HMS Victorious launched the first torpedo attack, striking a glancing blow but failing to slow her down. Destroyers shadowed her in the night, exchanging gunfire in stormy seas. By morning, the Royal Navy had lost contact. For over 30 hours, the Bismarck vanished. Churchill himself issued the order: "Sink the Bismarck." The entire British fleet surged into the Atlantic to find her again. On May 26th, a Catalina flying boat from Coastal Command spotted a dark shape slicing through the waves, 700 miles west of Brest. It was the Bismarck. The British carrier HMS Ark Royal was closest. Her swordfish torpedo bombers, old biplanes made of canvas and wood, prepared for attack. Against the most powerful battleship afloat, they looked like relics, slow, fragile, outdated. But that day, they would make history. At sunset, 15 swordfish biplanes took off in heavy wind and rain. Flying low over the sea, they closed in on Bismarck through a storm of anti-aircraft fire. Torpedoes streaked through the water. One struck amidships, another missed, and then one hit her rudder. It jammed hard to port. Bismarck could no longer steer. She began to turn in wide circles, helpless against the waves. Night fell, and British destroyers took turns harassing her, firing flares, torpedoes, and star shells. By dawn, the hunter had become the hunted. At first light on May 27, 1941, the battleships HMS King George V and HMS Rodney closed in for the kill. Bismarck fought bravely, firing salvo after salvo, but her gunners could no longer aim accurately. The British ships pummeled her from close range. Shell after shell ripped into her superstructure. Her turrets fell silent. Her mainmast toppled. Her crew continued firing machine guns even as the deck burned around them. After 90 minutes of relentless bombardment, Bismarck was reduced to a blazing wreck. At 10:39 a.m., she sank beneath the waves. Of her crew of 2,200, only 118 survived. When word reached London, the mood was somber, not celebratory. The Royal Navy had avenged the Hood, but at a terrible cost. More than 3,000 sailors from both sides were dead. The sinking of Bismarck was a turning point. It ended Germany's battleship threat in the Atlantic and marked the rise of aircraft as the true rulers of the sea. No other German surface ship would ever again challenge the Royal Navy on open waters. Years later, survivors on both sides met in remembrance, not as enemies, but as sailors bound by a shared respect for courage and sacrifice. For decades, the Bismarck's exact resting place remained unknown. In 1989, ocean explorer Robert Ballard, the same man who discovered the Titanic, located her wreck 15,000 feet below the surface. She lies upright on the seabed, her hull still mostly intact, her guns silent. The damage confirmed what witnesses had said. Bismarck had been scuttled by her own crew, even as British shells tore through her hull, ensuring she would not fall into enemy hands. Today, the site is recognized as a war grave, a final resting place for those who went down with their ship. The hunt for the Bismarck remains, one of the most dramatic naval operations ever undertaken, a story of pride, loss, and relentless determination. For Germany, it was the end of a dream of sea power reborn. For Britain, it was proof that resolve and coordination could overcome even the mightiest of enemies. And for the men who fought that battle, on both sides, it was simply the unforgiving reality of war at sea. Bismarck's legacy endures, not as a symbol of victory or defeat, but as a reminder of the cost of chasing power through steel and fire.